I have met people, and I have friends from California to Maine, all over the United States, and I met them all because of being an umpire. This game has allowed me to travel. This game has just been great to me, and I love every minute of being out there.
This is the Coaching Life Podcast, and I'm Chris Stewart, sitting alongside of my friend and co-host, Coach. Coach Pat Martin.
I was waiting. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Good to be here.
Oh, see, that was your perfect opportunity to say, thanks, Chris. Role reversal.
That's not how it works with me, though. That's not me. I respect you.
You forget my name. Well, listen, man, something caught my attention last week, and I mentioned it to you, and we said, let's just make it the topic of our conversation for the next podcast. And what caught my attention was the fact that my son is working as an athletic director now.
Yep.
And so I'm getting to see his first experience at trying to schedule officials for high school sports. Mm-hmm. Football officials, volleyball. They don't have home cross-country meets at Eastern, but a lot of schools have a lot of sports going on. Eastern only has a few sports going on, home games throughout the week, and he's having a hard time getting officials.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of high schools. I saw a story about, Waverly, a local school here, changed their game from Friday to Saturday solely because there were not enough officials to do the game.
Yeah, I missed that.
On a Friday night. And that's becoming that is the epidemic of our day in high school sports. And so I thought we would jump into that a little bit. And it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to realize how big of a problem it is.
Sure.
It's happening nationwide. Listen to this.
Ohio has been dealing with a decline in the number of sports officials, making it harder for teams and leagues to try to organize games.
Football season is here, but a shortage of referees means high school and youth sporting events could be impacted.
With high school sports already underway throughout our region, Kentucky is dealing with a shortage of officials for all types of sports.
A shortage of officials is causing issues for the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association.
It may be the most thankless job in America, a high school sports referee. The best ones go completely unnoticed. The ones deemed below average, well, spectators have no problem seeing those stripes.
Nationwide shortage of youth sports officials.
Wisconsin is dealing with a shortage of high school sports officials in all sports, but especially football.
Those Friday night lights are now coming on Thursdays and Saturdays too.
Not enough that Ottawa Hills actually had to move its Friday night football game to Thursday just so they'd have refs. The problem is we're seeing fewer and fewer people officiate games.
If there's no referees, there's no game, and if there's no game, there's no fun. And TJ, youth sports are meant to be fun.
Carlos Mejia coaches and is the director for girls at the New York Soccer Club. He says he's seeing referees leave year after year, and that there needs to be guidelines between officials, parents, and the league.
According to the National Federation of State High School Association, there has been a loss of about 50,000 referees and umpires nationwide since the 2018-2019 season, forcing schools to rearrange their game day schedules.
Tag is in time. The shortage of new high school baseball umpires is worrisome to longtime assigner Greg Kramer.
Officials in Ohio tell us the referee shortage is most critical in these sports: volleyball, soccer, lacrosse, track and field, and baseball. But there's been an uptick in the number of children taking officiating classes.
Soon, parents and student athletes, they'll be going through these locked gates, and they'll be taking the field and taking the stands. But the biggest problem that is contributing to the referee shortage here in Michigan, well, it's the heckling parents.
Although the OHSA has lost nearly 1,300 officials since the 2019-20 school year, there is hope a new plan will soon spark interest.
What's the plan? Or the hope in a plan?
The clip ended there. So it actually took me maybe 30 minutes, Pat. I don't know how many different states you heard there. I just went on YouTube.
Few, yeah.
I went on YouTube and just typed in the search bar, shortage of officials shortage, and just took some clips and put them together just so that we could have sort of a backdrop for today's conversation. But before we actually go any further, something else that we thought would be a great idea today is to bring a longtime official in to talk with us about this, because it's one thing for you and I to talk about it. I want to hear from the people that are doing it. And
I think this is the first guest we've had in studio
in a while.
2 years.
You might be right.
It's at least 2 years.
You might be right.
Well, wait. Yeah, in studio, in person, in studio, 2 years.
Well, okay. So an extra special welcome then to our guest, John Hanlon. How you doing, John?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you.
Had a baby. Well, let me tell you a little bit about John. John has been around our area of the world here in southeastern Ohio for a long time officiating. I ran into, you and I have gone back to youth ball, in Sandlot days.
Your son was 10.
Yeah. And he's 25, just turned 25. And he's one of the athletic directors who's trying to hire you right now, right, as an official. But you have been officiating for 21 years, you told me last night.
Yeah.
And most recently, you've been working in college baseball for 9 years, also certified to work varsity sports games in 5 different sports total. He's also helping with Ohio High School in being an observer for officials in multiple sports. And each year he goes back and you basically have to continue your it's not really a certification process for the NCAA or NAIA, but you just have to pass a test.
It's a test and clinics.
Gotcha.
Got to have your assigners
keep
seeing
those,
you in clinics to get games.
Yeah. But he's a conference weekend official for multiple D2 conferences and the OAC in Division III. I know that when Brock was playing college ball, we ran into John a handful of times down in Beckley and Charleston and back Ohio Valley as well. Did you ever go to Alderson Broaddus and do any home games there?
Yeah, I had a couple out there. I had them in Western Kentucky. No, Eastern Kentucky.
Okay.
Sorry, we missed that one.
And
could have made that fun.
I had them in a few different.
I think you were there. It was his sophomore year, I believe. They missed the conference championships, the conference playoffs by 1 game, and it came down to them in OVU, and in that series, and they won. They needed to win 2. They won the game 3, and then they went to play game 4. They were ahead in that game, and OVU had this huge comeback and actually won at the last in the last inning. It was heartbreaking for AB, but of course exciting. And they literally OVU got in the vans that night because the rest of the conference was there. They were already in. That was the GMAC. They were already in Prasco Park in Cincinnati, waiting on the next team to come, and it was going to be one of those 2. You were doing that one.
Yeah, I had the plate on that last game too.
Yeah.
And I was just.
Oh, and it got testy too. They had that catcher. He was a spark plug, man. That kid was.
He had a little bit of a mouth on him. That's about the nicest way to put it.
Good deal. Yeah. Well, we have an interesting topic, to say the least. It could be a contentious one. It could be one where there could be, I guess, different perspectives on why. But if I were to play more, longer pieces of those clips that we heard just seconds of earlier, those stories that those news channels were doing were focusing on the reason for officials' shortage being the behavior of parents.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me that only a couple times in those stories, those news stories that I watched, did I even see mention of behavior of coaches.
Yeah.
It's mostly behavior from stands, from the fans and parents.
It's interesting. I think that's the easy way. We have an issue.
We have
a problem.
Yeah.
How do we fix it? Because I think if we constantly go back to the parents need to behave better in the stands, or even if coaches need to behave better towards the umpires, then it's really just it's argumentative.
Yeah.
You know, and people's gonna put up walls against that idea, and they're gonna have reasons that they should continue to behave the way that they behave. I think we just need to figure out how we stop it. You know what I mean? And that's the trick. I think that's the plan. The hope of the new plan isn't that, miraculously that every fan that comes to a game or every coach is really, really nice to our officials, because I don't think that's feasible. That's not going to happen.
And that never has been. You were getting ready to say something, John.
No, I was just going to say you're right. That it's never going to be that way. But we have to find a happy medium.
Sure.
Honestly, the riling with the fans, I get it. They get uptight. They get really anxious when it's a good game or when it's their kid out there.
Sure,
I
right.
get that. However, here's what I told one guy, and he had to sit there and he stopped and think about it. I said, honestly, if you're yelling at me, what's your kid doing?
Yeah.
Because you have no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of fall off from that. One, if you're distracting the umpire is probably not going to be doing the best job that they can do.
You want them to do a better job.
Yeah.
You're not helping.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
Pointing at that kid, what's the kid going to do? It might match that energy and be yelling at the umpire as well. And then that's going to get that kid in a spot that they don't want to be in.
I want to go back and correct something I just said. I said, as a parent, you're thinking, or somebody from the stands, could be a coach too, you want them to do a better job. I should say, you want them to do a better job from your perspective. Because I can tell you this, I one of the things that really helped me to hold my tongue, both in speaking to umpires as well as speaking to my players, was when I started putting a GoPro on the fence behind right directly behind the catcher, and I could, and then there were pitches that often our catcher would not move. The mitt hit the mitt, and of course from the dugout, I had a great view of that. Right, that's a strike. Come on, and then I watched the video. Oh wait, our catcher's set up. He's practically outside the box. Right. Our catcher set up. It's actually not a strike. It looked like a strike, and that's what happens. Is it looks like from your perspective, you think they need to do a better job, and often they might be right on, and you just don't know it because you can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably been out on the field many times or a court when you wish that you were getting heckled by someone, and you thought, I wish they would do this a couple times and see.
just please come out here for a half inning.
Yeah.
Just, all you need is a half of an inning.
Right. And, but like foul balls, or fair balls down the line. I mean, a lot of times the only person that can see that is the umpire, the catcher, and then any fan that's standing directly behind them.
Yeah.
And anyone else doesn't have that perspective.
And let's be honest, the fan that's sitting directly behind there has a subjective opinion.
They either want it to be fair or foul, one or the other.
They want it to be one or the other. The umpire does not want it to be one or the other. You just want it to be right.
Right.
You want to be able to see it correctly.
Yeah, and I think that's where people go is, the idea of an umpire cheating. Like, okay, let's cover that real quick. I mean, is it 1%? I mean, is it completely impossible? No. But is it 1%? Maybe it's 1%. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, these guys, they're not, guys and women are not out there to cheat. And I mean, honestly, right now, most of them, and I think this is a problem that we have, and I'd like to get your perspective on this, John, is a lot of the umpires that we have right now, in my opinion, they do it for the money because it's there, and we lack guys and girls, women, that have a love for the game because we've ran those people off.
There is that. Yeah. And you are right. They are there for the money. But there's a couple of things that go along with that. Let's take baseball for an example. As a new umpire trying to get into baseball is the most expensive sport to start out in because when you start out, you're already, for good equipment, not great, but for good equipment, $750 in the hole.
Wow. Yeah.
That's something I don't think about.
Yeah. I mean, either.
And you're working only JV games.
Right. Because you're just starting.
$45 a game. And you're spending gas.
It's going to take you a long time to catch up there.
That first year, if you make any money, you're doing really, really good.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that people forget about is they think we're getting paid really well. Not really. And I'm not.
You're not getting paid hardly enough. I've done some volleyball line judging, over the past couple weeks, and they're like, sign up on this thing and get paid. I think they pay $15 a game.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not enough for me to do this. If I'm going to do it, you're going to have to pay. Like, if you're going to pay me, you got to pay me a lot more.
And you're
than
not licensed to do it.
No,
You've not taken any classes to do that, like an umpire or official
We have
would.
to renew every year, and we have to pay money every year.
Yeah. As do coaches. We understand that aspect of it as a coach. Yeah.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
The travel, the meetings we have to go to, the equipment upkeep. My bag right now, I probably got $2,500 worth of equipment in it.
Just for one sport.
Just for one sport.
Yeah.
So,
do you have to pay for the license for each sport as well?
Yes.
If you want to do a different sport, then
it's all individual.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like $55 for the first sport. And then OHSAA charges you $25 for each additional sport.
Okay.
So that's your registration there. Then your local registration.
Yeah.
You have that as well. So there's more to it than just, you pay a fee and here you go.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more really involved in it.
Yeah. Let me ask a question, kind of going back to the parents and the fans in the stands and things like that. And then, one of the things, my observation has been, and of course, 95% of my experience is in the game of baseball. And so when we say officials, we're most of the time here going to say umpires, but it could be any sport. You always notice that some officials handle the heckling or whatever you want to call it, the bad behavior of parents a little better than others. And I'm wondering from you, like, what's the line for you? Like, when does a fan that's not on the field cause you to want to actually do something about it, like to turn around and say something, or to grab the athletic director or the school admin that's there and say, hey, we got to do something about this person? Because it seems to be different for different people, and it might just be personality thing, right?
It really is a personality.
Because it's easy to say, hey, take the rabbit ears down, right? Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm saying, right? When do the rabbit ears go up?
For me personally, if I hear somebody in the stands, and irregardless of what anybody says, we hear everything.
Right.
That's impossible not to, right?
Yeah. Most of the time, I'll bend down and talk to the catcher. You hear these idiots back there, and we'll sit there and chuckle about it until they use the word "you." And as soon as they use "you," I listen to what comes next, because anything that gets derogatory, they're done.
Yeah.
And it used to be before they taught ignore the fans, and that's where the problem came from. A lot of the problem came from is that we ignored it, and the more we ignored it, the more miles. It wasn't an inch they took miles.
Interesting.
And now I've gotten to the point where if you want to berate me, you don't need to be there, because you're not there for your kids. You're there to make a spectacle. And I'm not there for that, and I'm not going to listen to it.
That's fair.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
You said it used to be they taught ignore. What are they actually teaching in the umpire classes different, or the officials classes different now?
Officials, I think, have kind of taken that line of, that was the straw that broke our backs and we are done.
Yeah.
And it's that point now that, excuse me, a lot of officials don't want to come back because of the berating. And most of the time it's either in baseball or basketball, because the fans are closer to the court and closer to the field, to where you can hear everything that's being said. And there are times where I have just really wanted to turn around and walk into the stands and be like, you really want to say that to my face? But it's not worth it.
I've said before on this show, there's no way I'd want to do basketball.
Absolutely not.
But it's amazing that some people really love doing basketball.
Yeah.
John, you have to be borderline crazy to do
You really kind of do, and it's one of those.
You can't do
ones
anything
where-
right.
No, they expect you to come in as a new official, perfect, and get better from there.
Right.
That's the best way to put it.
Basketball's so hard to call.
It is.
You've got 4 eyes watching 10 kids.
Yeah, and just trying it,
Yeah.
you know, in practice. and
Very
things
fast
like that.
pace.
It is.
It's difficult. That's a good for coaches out there, basketball coaches. If you do run scrimmages and things, and you're serving as an official, be cognizant of the way that your players during those practices are responding to you as an official. You know, as you throw, and correct that as you're coaching, because it's something you need to do.
I can't require it, but it's something that I strongly encourage our baseball players to do at Eastern is, and I actually give Chris Carroll I'm like, he already has a lot of their contact info anyway. It's a small community. But I say, you need to umpire all summer long. 1, you're going to make a little extra cash. But 2, you're going to learn the game. You're going to learn the game. You're going to learn what it's like to be in those shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. See,
you're going to learn how hard it is. To do that.
So I'm going to make a statement that's going to support or give us an idea of how bad the situation we're in. I don't allow my kids to umpire.
You're on the opposite end of that.
And when I say kids, I mean my children.
Oh, your personal children.
Yeah,
Jeremiah
wanted
and
to.
Jake.
Yeah. Now I have reached out to the team and asked them if they were willing to umpire like junior high games and things like that. But it bothers me even when our baseball players are umpiring a game. Like I try to be there, especially junior high. I've been there, but it's hard for me to sit and listen to someone get on them too much, you know.
Well, I've got a story for you.
Okay.
It's right along those lines. And we were at Sandlot about 4 years ago. Daughters are playing softball out there, and I like to stand by the road, away from everybody.
So you're a fan at this point?
I'm a fan, and I'm a dad, and I'm standing by the road just doing nothing except watching my daughters play, loving that part.
Yeah.
And they have a little boy. He's probably, I think he was 13 or 14 years old, back behind the plate calling balls and strikes. Fisher. I know his first name was Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
These parents are riding this boy like there is no tomorrow. And I sat back there with my fiance, and I sat back there for about a half inning. And I sat back, and I took it, and I took it. And I was like, you know what, I can't take this anymore. And I walked up to the backstop, and I looked at him. I said, you, young man, are doing a good job. Don't listen to him. Don't worry about it. And I turned around, and I said, I don't see any of you guys out there trying to help the situation or volunteering to be out in the field with him. So why don't you all be quiet and shut up?
Yeah, there's a reason we have to have a 13-year-old kid out here.
Exactly.
Because you're not wanting to do it. Yeah.
And
was he by himself?
He was.
That's
a lot of responsibility.
And I went back out there with him, and I helped him in sandals to call a game because nobody would help him.
Yeah.
And I looked at all of them, and I said, really? This is a 14-year-old boy, and the words that you are using to describe that young man.
Oh, no.
I was like, if that was my child, I'd have beat every single one of you to death.
Yeah.
That's even a little word, so I don't maybe I'm a little bit naive to the issue that we're having, because I think, like you said earlier, anything derogatory to me, that's a horrible example.
Yeah.
That shouldn't happen. Like, there's a part, like, I do think officials and umpires should limit interaction with the fans and not let them, they should have a goal of not allowing what the fans are saying to bother them. But when it gets to that point, the umpire shouldn't even have to deal with that. That should be something that the administration or the coaches should step up and say, we can't have this.
We've seen in recent years, professional players, get to a point to where they've had enough.
Yeah.
And they go into stands.
That's true.
You know, people yelling out, throwing stuff at it, you know, things like that. And it is. Well, okay, along this same vein of thinking, okay, let me play devil's advocate here, right? And I'll ask you a question, John. So is this really new? Like, haven't officials always been treated poorly? Haven't people always yelled from the stands? Hasn't this always been a problem? I mean, I can take you back. I can find a bunch of videos from, you know, the 1960s and Earl Weaver. Of course, those are all, again, those are coaches yelling. Yeah. But weren't fans yelling too at those games?
And there again, it goes back to where we were taught to ignore.
Yeah.
And we did. We ignored it. We didn't. You call us all kinds of names. I've had to go home and look it up, what you've called me, to find out what you said. But we were supposed to ignore it because, and like you said, talking to fans, there is nothing good that ever comes from a referee talking to a fan, because the fan is one-sided, irregardless.
Yeah.
So whatever you say to them, they don't want to hear it that way. So why should I waste my breath?
Yeah.
When all it's going to do is cause more of an argument, and now I'm going to be either looking at the coach, looking at the athletic director, going, get him out.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a little bit more preventative like that, where I try not to look at the fans. I try not to interact with them for the most part.
And I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, so is the problem, and again, I'm not standing on one particular position here, but is the problem the fans, or is the problem now we are interacting with them?
Here's
as
the
officials?
thing, though. It really doesn't matter what the problem is.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
And that's what I kind of alluded to
you're
earlier,
right.
Because there's less that are willing to deal with the experience. Whatever the experience is.
Yeah.
We have to figure out a way to get more that are willing to deal with that experience.
Yeah.
That's the new hope for a plan.
That is the new hope.
Well, there used to be a rule of 2. For every 2 new umpires that came out, one of them would stay. We're at the rule of 4 now.
Oh,
for every 4 new
that
umpires that come in, 4 new umpires that start, one will stay after 2 years.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
They don't stay.
Yeah.
Because they get rode, they get called. I don't know about anybody else, but there is no other job that you can go to and get berated by everybody, and it's.
Oh, and let's just be honest.
In
it's
quotes,
not just
it's okay.
And you're talking about a job. Like, like I wouldn't get paid a full-time salary and benefits and allow that to happen, let alone get paid $35 and have to drive to it and get yelled at that way.
Someone told me a couple years ago that officials and umpires are the only type of people in the world that we are not allowed, or that we're still allowed to offend. We can't offend anybody else except umpires and officials.
That's right, because we're all on the same team on that one right there. We all hate them. They all suck. No,
and I heard a comment a long time ago, and it just stuck in my head that umpires are the ugly stepchild that nobody in the family wants to deal with, but you have to deal with them.
They're a necessary part of the game, and we got to figure out a way. We're not doing any favors here of trying to get new people to want to officiate so far.
No.
30 minutes into our podcast.
All right. Well,
I'll tell you what, though. Here's the great part about it, and this is the best
that's
part
what I want to
about
hear.
sports, and this is the best part I've ever come to know about umpiring. 3 of my best friends are all umpires. My best man at my wedding will probably be an umpire. I have met people, and I have friends from California to Maine, all over the United States, and I met them all because of being an umpire. This game has paid for things. This game has allowed me to travel. this game has just been great to me, and I love every minute of being out there. Before the first pitch, I have butterflies every single game, and if I don't have butterflies, it's probably time for me to go.
Yeah,
because
I can. Oh, sorry to cut you off.
You're describing a feeling from an umpire standpoint that I get from a coach's standpoint, and that's what earlier when you said something about what is missing, you wonder are we missing? Do we have fewer people like you?
Absolutely,
John? Fewer people like that.
We've ruined that, and the people that feel like you have decided that it's no longer worth it. They've gotten their experience.
While they love the game, they're going to experience the game a different way, a different route.
Right.
Than that.
Yeah.
Because honestly, truthfully, do you want to go someplace for 2 hours and get yelled at constantly by anybody?
Yeah,
I mean,
of course not.
Irregardless of the money you make. And for a long time, varsity games were only $40 a game when I first started, $35 and $40 a game. So you're out there for 2 hours just getting beat on.
Yeah, and the truth about this is, if you are a person, here's the other thing that specifically baseball is dealing with. If you are an umpire that enjoys the game and has that feeling and has a love for it, you move over to softball.
Yeah.
A little bit of a different game, but you can still have that feeling, and
it's only an hour long.
It's only an hour long.
I see what you're saying. I was going to say, I've been to some softball games where
you get paid.
Yelled at a lot
you're still
worse.
going to get yelled at.
I'm telling you right now, softball, I haven't been in both worlds. Softballs
but it's
can be
less
worse.
time.
But we're not going to let them off the hook.
It's less time, and you get paid. A lot of baseball umpires have done that. You know what I mean? So,
and you don't get overtime.
Right,
extra innings. It doesn't matter how many.
That's right.
innings
I remind you guys of that sometimes.
Like
when
same amount.
When you intentionally allow other teams to tie us and take us into extra innings.
Oh yeah, because
I hate that. I hate when you guys.
We're not paying you extra.
As we're sitting, walking to the plate for our plate meeting, going, you know what? 7th inning, I'm going to make sure we go extras, just because I feel like
strike
being
zone
out.
is going to be a Pringles can in that second and that 7th.
Let me ask you this: what do you, when you go? I'm not going to ask you your favorite place because it's obviously Meg's. But when you go to umpire baseball games, or even if you, we can even use basketball as an example, or even volleyball. Every sport that you use. What are some of the things that make you want to go to specific places?
The way I get treated.
Well, I mean,
it's not. It's more than just the way the fans treat you. The way that you can talk to coaches, the way the athletic director greets you, the way that, hey, we've got some waters back there in the locker room for you during halftime, or if you want a Gatorade, let me know and I'll bring it in. Little things. It's not, we don't, as umpires, truthfully, we don't ask for a lot. Respect, and maybe throw us some water, hey, after the game, why don't you go up and get whatever you want at the concession stand? Don't get crazy with it, but get something to eat. We really appreciate that more than anything that people realize.
You got to know that you're appreciated to want to go somewhere, I would assume.
Yeah.
And if you go to a school district where it's like, well, you're a necessary evil we have to put up with for the next 2 hours, why would you ever want to go back? But if you walk in and they roll out the red carpet for you and you're appreciated, I'm going to guess that's going to help make them want to come to your school and or to your park or your association, wherever it is that you're
there are
overseeing.
Certain schools that I will not go to.
Yeah.
I absolutely refuse to go to because of the way I got treated.
Yeah.
And you hate to be like that, but
you have the choice.
I'm an independent
That's
contractor.
The thing, right?
I can go where I choose to.
Yeah, you don't have to go.
No, not at all.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize is we're not contracted through OHSAA or the NCAA. we're all independent contractors, so there is no insurance, there is no retirement, there is no future benefits other than what you're making from this game and the possibility of tournament games.
And see, that's what I don't. It's not a career. I think a lot of people if you're, I guess if you're doing college, I don't know what college umpires are paid, but if you're doing college games every day, maybe, but or pro, you know what I mean. But still,
Kevin Schwartzel doesn't make that his career.
Well, yeah, good point.
I mean, he's at one of the higher levels of anyone around here, doing the Big Ten, and he's also a funeral director. He's also a business owner. He's a business owner, yeah.
And I guess that's my point when I tell people I usually don't take money to umpire because you can't. I don't do it for the money. If I did it for the money, you couldn't pay me to do it. You know what I mean? And I maybe that's an understanding that would help people, as fans and even coaches, that it's actually a volunteer position.
It very much is.
We're giving you a donation, basically.
It kind of is, and you're really right, because if people would just see what we make for the amount of physical work that we put in running up and down that floor, or squatting, doing bends, coming back up, running towards first base, running out towards second base, and God forbid you really have to take him all the way around. But for that amount of money and that amount of work and that little bit of time, I don't think people realize, because if you factor in, if you want to get something to eat after the game, if you factor in gas, everything that you factor in, by the time you're done, you really make minimum wage.
Yeah, and the time, because a lot of people be like, if I think the TVC, you might know this, is I think that we pay $80 for umpires.
I think they just recently made a across the board fee, right? Because I think Athens was paying a little bit more than some other schools, and
more than. Yeah.
And they just.
But do you have to pay that, or can you choose to pay more?
I think they can choose to pay more, but I think that was
there's a minimum
baseline.
Yeah. Interesting. Some people would look at that and say, well, the baseball game's 2 hours long. He's making $40 an hour. It's plenty of money, but it doesn't equate that way. First of all, it's you're probably
not
driving
2 hours.
Well, right. I'm just using that. Say it's 3.
Well, but you're talking about just the game, but driving wherever they live, driving to and from.
Yes.
The amount of time that they put in to prepare for that game. That it really doesn't. I mean, it's like us saying, "Oh, your coaches, you guys get paid for the 2 hours that you're out there playing games."
Right.
You and I know better than that.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've got to be there 45 minutes early.
Yeah, right. Right.
So, that's a good point. Right. You do. It's not just exactly. You don't just start when the game starts. You show up early.
And gas prices are so great right now that it makes us, and that's another problem, is because of the gas prices, the way that they are, we're not making enough to make it worth our while to travel.
Yeah.
I used to travel an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes for a football game. Not anymore. If I go more than 30 minutes, you've really accomplished something with me. Just because it doesn't make any sense money-wise.
Yeah.
I can't donate my time anymore like that. That just it doesn't make sense.
I've heard several umpires, or actually not umpires, officials say that they've been trying to get games closer to where they live for that very reason.
Yeah.
I think the key is there's a relationship value there, and I think that's that's one of the keys to if we have people out there that are willing to try to change their behavior, their attitude towards umpires. And one of the keys is if you're not going to try to develop a relationship with that umpire, at least imagine that you have a relationship with that umpire, that they're one of your friends or a friend of your friend or something of that nature. And I think that, you treat those people better. You don't, you don't get as angry.
I'll never forget the first time as a young coach I mean, I'm talking, I was probably 25 years old coaching American Legion baseball, and we went up and played in Lancaster, and a veteran umpire named Tim Shoemaker was behind the plate. It's the first time I had met him, and we went over ground rules, and we had, he was calling balls and strikes, and our pitcher had some body language where he disagreed, right? And like he kind of shook his head and everything. And so I called timeout, went out to talk to him. And then when Tim came out to get me, he said, hey, Chris, he said, just want to let you know. He said, just tell him that, those kinds of things, it doesn't help him any. And he said, anything that we need to talk about, you call me Tim, I'll call you Chris. Let's establish here that we're out here to try to figure things out to the best of everybody's benefit. And I remember that changed me a little bit because, I was a young coach, and I had this idea that umpires were out to get us, right? I came into the game with a chip on my shoulder all the time. I wrote about this in Building Champions, about how it was like an epiphany moment for me, where it's like, wait a minute. Our opponent is not the team we're playing against and the umpire.
Right.
They are a moderator. They're here to make sure that the rules are upheld and that the game is played to the best of its ability within the rules. And that relational aspect is what helps that when you're on the field with the coach and the coach and the officials. It's just so hard to have that. And I think that's what helps with, when you show up to a school, John, and you say that this is a school district that I would love to go work at because of that relational aspect with the athletic director and the administrators. Is how do we get that? How do we establish that with parents and fans? I mean, and because you can have that with the kids too. Like you said, you talk to the catchers. I've had my catchers come over and tell me all the time, dude, this guy's hilarious behind me. Right? And he tells me a little bit about what you've been talking about and things like that. And I like that. Yeah. I love that. I love that interaction.
Have a relationship
with
with your catchers.
Yeah.
You have to. There is no doubt. And personally, I like my catchers to know that I'm human. And I think if fans realized that we are human, just like everybody else, we're not robots. Just because I put a chest protector and a shirt on doesn't turn me. I mean, I wear glasses. When I put that chest protector and that shirt on, I still wear my glasses. I'm not perfect at all. And if they could humanize it a little bit, I think that would go a long way in a relationship, just in that part of it, in that aspect of it right there. Because I see a lot of these people out in the community.
Right.
And they don't ever talk to me like that when I'm out in the community.
Right.
They come up like they're my friend. But then as soon as I step on the floor, it's all kinds of names and it's fair game.
Well,
and
I told you you're crazy for ever stepping on the floor to officiate. Floors are bad.
Yeah, I agree with that. But
you know what? Let's be honest. Parents, fans, you don't want robots.
No.
Because if you get a robot ump, then your strike zone is going to be the strike zone every time. And there are going to be lots of things that you're like, that's a strike. Because your catcher catches it and it doesn't move. And you'd be really surprised at what 17 inches really looks like.
You really, really would.
Either way.
Like in our NCAA meetings this year, our SEC commissioner, when he came in and he brought the plate out and he put an overlay of where we're at, and we're talking a third of an inch outside.
Yeah.
You don't get it.
Yeah.
But that's where technology is with us. And guys, we get one look
at
everything.
Second.
This long.
And you don't have that box.
No.
Like, you're not envisioning that box that we see now on TV, right? I got to be honest, I am actually amazed. I know there's been a lot of talk about how poor the umpiring is in the MLB, but the percentage of times that those guys are right.
Actually,
on a ball, on a ball that, like you said, is a quarter of an inch outside that box, and they stick to their guns. Like, no, that's outside, and everybody else is yelling like that was a strike, and we're looking at it on TV, going, no, actually it wasn't.
No, it really wasn't.
And he saw that. I mean, that's incredible to me.
Well, think about it like this with numbers: a 90-mile-an-hour pitch takes 0.1 seconds. Or no, 0.3 seconds to get from the mound to the plate.
Yeah, hitters know.
We have enough time. That's the same amount of time as it takes for you to blink.
And you don't see that the first third of the trout.
You don't see that first third, but we have to pick that up.
Yeah,
we
because
have
it
to
could
make
be
that
outside
call.
the strike zone when it leaves a pitcher's hand. But
And
that doesn't
we've
matter.
And we've got to follow it all the way in. So we have less than a half of a second to watch, digest, and not only digest the pitch, but we got to watch the pitcher, we got to watch the catcher, we got to see if there's going to be a steal being made. Did he check his swing? Did he go all the way around? There are so many different things that you watch for with that pitch, not just the pitch.
Yeah.
And it again, people don't realize that there is that much that goes into it other than, oh, well, he missed that pitch. Well, I was watching to see if he balked. I was watching this kid right here. I was watching my catcher, and if I missed it by a quarter of an inch outside.
Oh, yeah. And somehow you're supposed to be able to see if, let's say, the hitter strides, hits a ball to the gap, and his front foot lands outside the box.
Yes.
Or
You're
it puts
expected
a
to,
bunt
right?
down. Bunts are the worst thing because the catcher's popping up, the kid's squared around, and you're trying to get all of that and trying to get a position in case he misses the pitch to call the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got called Bush League one time because I pointed out the kid stepped out of the box. I kind of thought, yeah, that was kind of Bush League. There's a Twitter account out there called Umpire Scorecards, and it's a I don't know where they get it from, but it's they post every Major League Baseball game. Yeah, like how many balls they missed, how many strikes they missed, impactful missed calls, things like that, and they grade the umpires on every game. It's something that I've looked at over last year or so, and it's interesting to know. Yes, they do miss a lot of calls, but that's the human element that comes into it. And I think what is surprising is how many they get right.
Oh, it is surprising. That was my point. Because some of those that they get right, when you get an obvious one right, that's great. But some of those on the edge where a hitter's like, that was high. I'm like, no, actually, bud, that was in the strike zone.
Yeah,
that was in the box.
Well, and that's like, okay, we go to multiple camps each year. And that is our biggest thing there's two things. Timing is the biggest thing. Timing is more important than anything else. And getting the best view you can. And I heard commentators this year talking about us getting in the slot and looking diagonal. Well, he doesn't get a good look at that outside corner pitch from that. Oh, yes, we do. Get back there one time and I'll show you exactly what we see. But there again, you've got commentators.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If we could watch the game, if we could watch the game on mute, it would just be so great.
What do you mean by timing? You said it's the most important thing. Explain that for our listeners.
Okay, timing is you see the pitch coming in. Catcher catches the ball. If you've made up your mind before that ball gets to the plate, as soon as that catcher catches that ball, you're banging that strike. If you see guys hesitate just a little bit and come out confident with their call, they've took time, they digested it in their head, they figured out where it was at. Yeah, I've got that strike.
Yep. That's what you want.
That's what you want.
People don't understand that. They're like, oh, he was unsure. No, he's making sure.
Right.
Even a bang bang play at first base. I would rather see him go, yeah, what I thought I saw, I really did see. He's out.
You don't want to make that call quick.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why is because if you do get fooled and you have to process it, now you're unsure.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you missed it. It
Or
don't
if
matter.
you're banging a kid out at first, and your first baseman drops the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah, you did it early, right? Yeah.
Now you look like an
that's the
absolute
That's the example of making sure of taking it all in. It's not just did he beat the throw. It's did he beat the throw? Was the first baseman's foot on the bag? Did he catch the ball? Did he keep control of the ball?
Well, for umpires, I wish that they and players, I wish that the college rules and the high school rules were the same.
Yeah, that's another issue.
I really wish that they were, because for umpires, in the college game, we have voluntary release.
I don't know what that means.
Play is not done until you see voluntary release of the ball. And if you don't get voluntary release of the ball, it's not a catch, it's not an out, it's nothing at all. So a transfer.
Yeah.
If it comes out on the transfer, guess what? That's not voluntary release. And he's safe.
Really?
Oh, yes.
What college? In college?
In college. I wish that was the same way in high school,
That's
because
bizarre.
then that gives us our timing.
Yeah.
Because then we get to watch the play all the way through
before you call this
until he releases the ball, and then we get our call.
And you got to remind you got to remind yourself then, bouncing back and forth between the two levels. What is the rule?
Ooh, that's real tricky.
Yeah.
That's real tough.
Well, shoot, it's sometimes some things are different from NAIA to NCAA,
Yes.
right?
Like the
NCAA
DH rule, the DH rule, the 10-run rule.
Oh, they have a 10-run rule in NAIA?
In NAIA,
Yeah.
they can go 5 innings
There
for
was some
double
games
headers.
I wish there was a 10-run rule that I've watched.
Oh,
college scores are lopsided
there
on
are
Sundays
some
now.
college
My
games
gosh.
Well,
where-
the championships,
The last
World
days of the
Series, yeah.
championships, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're done, you're out of pitching.
And you're sitting there in Omaha in 110-degree weather, and you're just,
I got to tell you, it was my first opportunity to go this year. I'll take that.
I love it
I'll
every day of the week.
I'll take 110 degrees in that venue
Every day.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, now you're talking about
Yeah,
what we
yeah,
should
buddy.
see. Whether it be 110 than 30.
Yeah.
Weather's pretty nice outside, by the way.
Oh, we didn't talk about the
Yeah.
weather. There it is. There it is. Every 148 episodes talk about the weather. So, okay, we got to come up with some solutions here, right? So, what do we need to do? Let me ask you, John. Why should someone become an official? I think that over the past few years there have been a lot of different things have happened that have caused the shortage of officials, and some things, we spent 50 minutes now talking about one aspect of it, but another aspect is some guys got old and retired.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that, younger guys are not desiring to get into it, or for one reason or another, they're just not doing it. And I think another very real thing that happened was COVID. The world shut down, sports shut down, and even though we decided to come back and play, some of the people who were officiating those
Some of
games
the
decided,
umpires,
you know what? I've kind of enjoyed my time off and
I don't
having my
have a
summers and having my and so they just decided not to come back. And I read a stat in Ohio that there was like 240,000 officials. I don't know. That's a lot. That's in the nation, maybe.
Yeah.
NFHS, maybe it was an NFHS stat.
Yeah, it can't be Ohio.
240,000 officials in the nation, and we lost 40,000 of them from between 2019 to 2021. It was 40,000 less.
Well, and there's a couple of reasons. And it's not just the fans, and it's not just being abused by the fans.
Yeah.
It's the pay. You see a lot of other states that are in the triple digits for pay for varsity games. And we are nowhere close to that.
In Ohio?
Yeah.
Across the board?
We are nowhere close to it. And that's another part of the contributing problem is why do I want to go out there and get berated for 2 hours if I'm not making anything for it? And I know that this is secondary and you don't make a career out of high school sports. You will not be able to do it. It just, even if you worked every single night, it wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. But again, make it worth the while.
Mm-hmm.
I have passion for the game. I love baseball. Love it. You've seen me out there. I have fun with it. It's the greatest sport in the world to me. But when I was sitting there making $40 a game, I'm sitting back looking, going, it's just not worth it.
So one obvious thing that we can do, school administrators, rec league operators, people like that, directors,
have a set pay.
We've got to figure out a way to pay them more.
But if you're traveling, like a set pay is great, but if you're traveling over a certain amount, I went to a school last year, and we won't mention any names, but
Eastern.
No, it was way out of the area. It was about an hour and 45 minutes away, and I called the coach because they called me up and said, "Hey, I see you're open. Why don't you come out here tonight?" I was like, "It's kind of hard for me to come out there when you guys pay $60 for an hour and 45-minute drive and a 2-hour game." And he was like, "I will take care of your gas for you," and gave me an extra $25 for gas. And I will go back out there every single time because the man put forth an effort to help.
Yeah, was that administration or was that?
No, that
coach?
was a coach. And I'll go out there and help the coach anytime I can.
Yeah.
Because of it. But I think if we just felt appreciated, I guess. I mean, you don't have to bow. Oh my God! Here they come. Let's bow down. It doesn't have to be.
Well, that's not what's
like
being
that.
expected either of you guys.
It just the appreciation of not getting called explicatives.
Yeah, those are the two words that I've circled and written down in my notes here today is appreciation and human. I think if we found ways to show officials that we truly are grateful that they're there. I'm grateful that I get to coach. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful for my coaching staff. You know what? I'm also grateful for these officials here. And but that's from an administration standpoint, a coach's standpoint, a family standpoint, parents, kids. John, you and I have talked about, we were planning this last year and you had some health issues last year, so we didn't get a chance to do it, but I want to do it again this year. Is for my baseball classroom. I want you to come out and just talk as an umpire. This is my perspective on the game, and this help my kids to understand what and my coaches, right?
Well,
to understand.
Like we were talking about the catchers. Me and my catchers have to have a relationship.
Yeah.
If you don't say a word to me back there, it's going to be a long day.
Sure. Yeah.
You gotta be able to, Here's a good
I
story.
really want to ask John what he thinks of Jake.
Go for it.
No.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
But
Pat's got a catcher over here. Have you done some of their games?
Yes, I have. I know who he's talking about. But here's a story for you. Calling a game at a school, college game. Got a good zone that day. Feeling good, getting a good zone. We've got a good game going.
That's a good point right there.
It is.
You don't feel good as a pitcher every day,
right?
The umpires have good days and bad days.
Absolutely,
that's a good point. Sorry, John, didn't interrupt.
No. You're right, but we've got a good game going. Got good pace. Good. It's just great, and I've got a ball that cock shot right down the middle of the plate. And I just look up, I'm like, ball?
Oops. Yeah.
And
you blew it.
I blew it. I kicked that call bigger than bigger can be. And I leaned down and I looked at the catcher and I was like, and he just threw it back. Didn't say a word, nothing whatsoever. And I leaned down and I was like, hey man, boy, I kicked the shit out of that call. He said, man, you've been calling a great game. I figured you were due for at least one.
Good for him.
And let it go just like that.
Well, he
had
recognized
that relationship too, to where, he realized that, we've been calling a good game. Everybody's human. And I mean, this was a beautiful, beautiful pitch. And the coach is standing up on the top of the dugout going, John. And I looked at him, I was like, you know where it was. I know where it was. They know where it was. Let's just stop.
Yeah.
And
Let's
he's
go to the
like,
next pitch. It's like we say to our kids, like we say to ourselves, so what? Next pitch.
Yeah.
So what?
And
Next
you
pitch.
know, you guys, you get 27 outs.
That was one pitch.
That was one pitch.
The next one, the kid knocked it over the fence. But
you've got a grand total of 81 strikes. And if you didn't get that one strike,
right,
what else did you do?
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that, we have to recognize that it's part of those calls being missed, bad breaks is part of the game. Like, it's part of the game that we love.
Yeah.
I could feel myself just melting when Nick Chubb got hurt in the Browns game the other night. And I was watching Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, and the way that he was dealing with it. And I'm like, I am so deflated. And I'm just a fan at, sitting home on my couch, but I'm so deflated. I can imagine how that team feels and how that coach feels and all those players. But in those situations, they don't have the ability to blame somebody. The only thing that they can do is continue to play, right? And I think one of the things we need to put value in the idea that by, giving umpires a hard time, whether it's the fans or the coaches, we're creating an excuse for ourselves that we don't have to continue to play.
Yeah.
We can just blame the officials that this is the reason.
Yeah, they're going to screw us. Yeah.
Right.
So,
and really, that's just part of the game. It's the same thing as an error, as a ball that has a lot of spin on it. A seeing eye single, whatever it is. Those are the breaks of the game.
You call it bad luck, call it what you want.
You have to play through it. And if you overreact to those situations, the body language, the negative connotation to what you're saying is going to negatively impact your team. And that's true from a player perspective, coach perspective, fan perspective. It's all true.
It is. And piggybacking on that about everything is when you're an umpire and then you become the father fan.
Yeah.
And your kids get in the car and excuses. Excuses are great. Dad, did you see that? He called that. Did he call it a strike? Yeah. Then it was a strike.
Yeah.
Baby, you got 3 strikes to do something with. Your bat didn't leave your shoulder one of those 3 times. So I don't want to hear it because you didn't put forth an effort to try.
Yeah.
And I try to be like, and they would be like, well, I'm not getting playing time. Go talk to your coach. I'm not your coach. I'm your dad. If you want more playing time, go find out why you're not getting more playing time.
Absolutely.
And then I'll help you with whatever he says.
I will help with
because
whatever
it's probably going to be you're not good enough.
Yeah.
There's something you've got to get better. Yeah.
I have tried my best to instill no excuses.
Well, and I think what you're talking about too is based on your experience on the field, you have a greater appreciation for all the things that everybody's doing out there, officiating, coaching, playing the game. And so it makes the fan experience more objective. It makes it really makes it better. It makes it easier. I've often said, go to a game that you have nothing vested in, no vested interest whatsoever.
Yes.
Stand along the outfield fence, and you'll find out how foolish some people sound when they have something vested in it, right?
Not only that, but it's good practice on how to respond because usually in those situations, you'll see an umpire make a mistake.
And you'll be like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, you'll be like, oh, he missed that one. And then life goes on.
And life goes on. Yeah.
I mean, it's short-term memory for us.
Yeah.
It really is. We try our best. And I'm not saying every umpire goes out there for the same reasons. Some of them go out there just for the money. Some of them go out there because they absolutely just are in love with the game and want to be around it as much as they possibly can. I love those guys.
I know more people like that.
And those are the greatest guys out there.
Because those are the ones that have been around for a long time.
We love it.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got to wrap up, but tell us, John, okay, let's say we're talking to young people that they're not going to continue playing baseball or football or basketball. They're maybe going to go to college or not go to college. Everybody who officiates in the context that we talk about here in a youth sports context, they have other jobs. They have other lives besides officiating. But officiating is still a really good thing to get into.
It is.
Why? One of the ways that we could help this problem is to recruit more people to officiate. So why should young people? Why should they? What's the benefit of becoming an official of youth sports?
Well, like I've said before, every time I go out on the field, I get butterflies because I played. It helps me to stay around the game, and I saw you. I love watching the kids grow, like your son.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Brock since he was 10 years old, growing up to now where he's an athletic director and in charge of stuff himself.
Yeah.
That's great. I love to see that growth, and that's what I tell people is that I've had kids that come up to me that I've umpired for probably 10, 15 years ago. Couldn't remember them to save my life because I see so many of them. But they come up and they talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's great that they remember something that I did for them that, hey, man, I remember it was great seeing you, That makes me feel appreciated again and great. And my best friends.
Yeah.
I have so many friends, and not just umpires, but from the coaching standpoint as well, that I've met over the years. Gibby. Love Gibby to death. Would have never
ever been yelled at by Gibby?
No. Not once, actually. Now,
wow.
I've heard
You're the only umpire that he's never yelled at before.
I always heard
Here's
come
why.
on, John.
But see, that's why. Some of these old guys, man, they had a way of you didn't even consider it. Trust me, he was on every umpire, every game. Yeah. But it didn't feel like it. There was something about it, come on, he's John. Funny, right? It's
as he's walking away from you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's a personality
and
trait.
There are certain coaches that you will let get that last word like that.
Yeah. I would guess Coach Caldwell gets the last word.
No. But getting back to that with recruiting, my friends, I make money. Anybody can make money at a job. You can go down to McDonald's and make money at a job right there. The friends that I've made around these sports are lifelong friends that I would have never, ever run into had I not done this. My friend Chris, who lives out in California, we go to visit him. He comes here to see us. I'd have never, ever known him if it wouldn't have been for baseball, for sports, for doing things like that. And that's what I tell people. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know what is going to really happen. It's not just a game.
Right.
It really isn't. And
yeah, it can be a better quality of life, believe it or not.
Oh, absolutely.
It increases your quality of life because of the relationships. There's always going to be negatives. There's always going to be those those ups and down times, those arguments, things like that. But the bigger picture is, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It can be a heck of a lot of fun.
It's a game, guys.
Well, I'll tell you that, for other people who are officials and listening, I can say this about you, John, personally, because over the years, you have officiated a lot of games that I've coached in, and I've watched you, and you've come to me, and I remember before you were doing college games, and you called or texted and said, because you wanted film, you wanted me, hey, be honest with me, right? I want to know what I need to work on.
Yeah.
And I don't always have I can count them on one hand how many times I've had officials, ask me that. Anthony Sheets has done it before. I've had a few, but you always were like, I want to be the best I can be.
Yeah.
And I have told people this. There are people who listen to our podcast who have heard me say to them, hey, listen, I've seen John when he first started doing high school games, and I've seen John behind the plate and doing college games. That sucker has improved tremendously, and it's because he wanted to. And I said it's because he loves the game. You can tell when an official loves the game because one, you just want to give. You want to give whatever you can to it, not just to the kids out there, not just to the coaches, but the game itself. And I see that in you. I've seen that in you, and that's the reason why you have progressed and you've become successful. And it's the reason why now I want you to come and do our games. There are some people, I'm on the same, like there are some places you don't want to go and some places you do want to go. There are some people I don't want to come do our games, and there are some people I want our athletic directors to call these people. And
that makes us feel appreciated even more than if you walk on the field and a coach sees you, because a lot of times the coaches don't know who's going to be there for those games because they get assigned by assigners. And when you walk on the field, we watch the coaches. And if you roll your eyes or anything like that, it's going to be a long day.
Oh man, yeah. I'm gonna have to send them to the visitors dugout now. It's too close to the way.
But
hey, we don't just have water in our dugout. We got whatever you guys want. You want Gatorade? We got Gatorade over here. Are you a Coors Light guy? We got.
But and there again, the one thing I wanted to say is, everybody thinks we're out there to cheat them. Now, everybody saw last year with Reggie Lewis down in New Orleans during college baseball season, where he pulled his little stunt. And everybody thinks that there is no repercussions for umpires. The man lost his entire career.
Wow.
They took his license. He might do high school games. He'll never do another major college. And he had a full SEC schedule. And the SEC,
I'm going to have to look this up. I don't know what you're talking about. Do you know what he's talking about? Okay. When you said Reggie, it didn't surprise me because one of the biggest arguments I've ever had with an umpire was an umpire named Reggie in a district championship game a few years ago.
There was a game down in New Orleans. It was a Division I college baseball game. Player didn't, and we're bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, runners on second and third, and they're down by 1. Kid didn't like an outside corner strike call. Jumped 5 feet in the air. I've seen videos of
this. I do know what you're talking about.
5 feet in the air, and the umpire didn't do anything. And I'm going to tell you what, the minute he left the ground is the minute my finger would have been leaving the air.
Yeah.
And then he called one that was way out.
And then he called one that was 2 feet into the other batter's box to end the game.
Yeah.
I thought that was fair. I didn't realize.
After the kid acted the way he did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a different ball game now. Now, before technology and before the video recorders on the phones, we would have all yanked the string on him and done the same thing.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Cannot
well, that's the only reason why the guy got fired now is because everybody's got a camera in your pocket, and it got on camera. And
I'm going to tell you what, for SEC games, when you are working a 3-game weekend, he threw away a lot of money because you make $4,500 for a 3-game weekend at least.
Well, and that's the problem you and I might, that's fair. The kid shouldn't have acted that way, but the reality is he cheated. The umpire cheated.
Yeah. And
he called something that was an obvious ball a strike.
I wouldn't call that cheating.
Well, it was retaliation for something that he didn't like.
Yeah.
He should have, like John said, he should have threw the kid out.
I blame the coach for getting that strike called because the kid wouldn't have stayed up there.
Well, exactly. Well,
he would have been out.
But at the same time, the umpire should have either handled the situation to begin with.
He should have. You're right.
Or left it alone.
There are a lot of people that fall in that situation.
It's a whole great.
A lot of people have to take ownership.
On the line. But he should have threw that kid out.
The umpire is the last one on the line.
We're calling this.
The first one on the line is the kid, right? The second, the young man, the man. The second guy in line would be the coach. Parents are in there somewhere, right? The way you were raised made you want to. There's a lot of people who are responsible for that particular situation.
But, when I've seen that video, that was what the I did see the umpire.
I didn't know what the guy's name was. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I do too. And my focus was always on the way that batter reacted.
I never, because I kind of smirked when the umpire called a strike. I'm like, good for him.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
No, not good for him.
See, but I love it, John, that's the stance you have.
Yeah.
Because you're a professional and you're like, no, that's not what we do.
Right. No.
I mean, here you and I, Pat, as from a coach's standpoint, are like, yeah, that umpire, he deserved to be able to do that. But you as an umpire are saying, no, he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You don't hear that. Like, fans, we don't realize that. Umpires want other umpires to do it right.
Oh, absolutely.
Do your job right.
Because if you come into a game and you call something, well, they didn't call it last game.
Well, yeah.
And then you're fighting that uphill battle the entire time. Well, where's that at? I can quote you rules if you really want to, but if they're not doing their job, then when you come in and actually do your job, it makes it even harder.
Yeah.
And so that's why we always are just like, do what's expected.
Yeah.
You don't have to go above and beyond. You don't have to do it. You don't have to be a super umpire. Oh, I'm running all the way out to center field to watch it. You don't have to be a super umpire. Just do your job.
Yeah.
That's all we ever ask.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Well, speaking of what's expected, I think this podcast probably earned you and I some calls this year, right?
John probably won't be at any of our games now.
That's right.
No.
Yep.
It'll be there. I always like coming out and working games with you guys anyways. We've always had good relationships where if something's working last year, when your catcher's setting up outside, and he literally didn't move his glove on probably 7 or 8 pitches that I know of. And I heard
he did what we wanted him to do. Yeah,
I heard your assistance, and I leaned down, and there I have
Burton. Coach Burton, he's talking about you.
That Eastern program teaches their catcher to do that just to make the umpires look bad, John.
But you know what?
That's exactly
I just
why they
leaned
do
down
it.
and I said, when you go in there, you tell him those are outside, and he needs to let me work.
And you know what? Jace did do that.
And
our
and
catcher
I know
did do
that.
that. He told us all.
Yeah. And that's the relationship that I try to build with my catchers is you go in there and you tell them. And that's my nice way of getting it under control, because if I actually have to look up and acknowledge you, then we got problems.
Well, and that's one of the things that I also said to our coaches is, part of the reason why we have the catcher set up out there is not so we try to get a call that's actually a ball that we want to get that call a strike.
You're setting up a pitch.
We want the hitter to have to try to go after a pitch that's off the plate a little bit. And kudos to the hitter for not doing that. And kudos to the umpire for calling it a ball, even though he knows we all think it's a strike.
Yeah.
I mean, the angles that you guys are looking from it looks great.
Oh, from the dugout? Yeah. Everything looks like a strike when our team's in the field.
Yeah.
Well, from the coach's box and the third base side, it's all a ball. And everything's a ball.
We teach in our classes for plate mechanics, get your up and down, because coaches can always see up and down.
And I actually say that. I've been known to say that once or twice
to an umpire.
Because I don't usually ask where was that at. I don't like asking that question. But if somebody offers it voluntarily, no, that was down. I'll sometimes go, I can see up and down. That didn't look down to me. I can see where his knees are and where the ball crossed. I can see that probably better than you. I mean, from standing back behind the hitter, it's too bad you can't have two people. You see in and out. You look down at the guy, the umpire standing down by the dugout. Hey, was that up or down? No, that was good. Okay, strike.
Hey,
imagine how long the game would be then.
If you want to do that in our next game,
we'll help you. Yeah. I'd be glad to. I'll volunteer for that role. They don't have to pay me extra for that. Yeah. Wait until we're playing Southern, and I'll let them know. I'll let Kyle know at the plate meeting. Hey, I'm going to help John umpire from the coach's box.
You want him to lose the rest of his hair, don't you?
Let him know when you're at Southern so that he knows part of that payment. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's. As long as we can get up and down, in and out is not truthfully that much of a problem. Out is a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But
after
you've done it enough, you know where it is.
And is this is a mechanics question? Are you supposed to get your eye level at the top of the strike zone? Is that the goal? And then anything that's above your eyes should be a ball. Anything that's eye level
every
or below?
umpire is different, but what we try to teach is chin to head, bottom of your chin to the top of the catcher's head.
Okay.
And then, because now you're looking over so you can see that top part of the strike zone, but when you're looking over him and down over his shoulder like that, you can see that outside corner too. So it's one of those things where, and a lot of times, you'll see us reposition when the catcher moves. And that's not to protect us.
Right.
That's just because, okay, he moved a little bit more in, so I've got to come up a little bit more to be able to see down in. So it's all...
Because you're not going to move... You have to establish where you want to be, regardless of where the catcher is. That's why when you're watching Little League World Series, you'll see an umpire sitting out there all exposed by himself, because those son of a guns, they'll sit 12 feet outside at the Little League World Series.
Maybe that's why they call those 12 feet outside.
I've told them before, you go out like that, you better make sure you catch that pitch, because if you don't, it's going to be a really long day.
Right. Well, speaking of that, let's close with this, John. Tell us a story of the worst foul ball you've ever taken.
Oh, Lord. It would have been at High Valley University.
Okay, college ball game.
College ball game. Chad Porter.
Who's now coaching high school ball at Warren.
Yeah. I thought he was going to die. He turned whiter than their uniforms because his third baseman.
Chad knows how to get on an umpire.
I've tossed him twice in college.
Chad listens to our podcast, I think. We'll find out.
No,
we'll find out after today.
Once in college. No, once in college, and that was it. But matter of fact, I got both head coaches that day. But their third baseman, he come around on an inside corner pitch, and I had enough time to go, this isn't going to hurt.
No.
And it caught right here.
Oh, in the face.
Straight in the face.
See, I thought you were going to go straight between the legs.
Yeah, me too.
Nah. You have a cup and you have protection, and if you don't wear protection, it's your own fault.
Yeah.
But this one knocked me out. I mean,
wow.
literally fell onto the catcher. They were playing Cedarville. And, I mean, that boy from Ohio was throwing probably low 90s. Mm-hmm. And that foul ball came off, and when it came off, I seen it coming, and there ain't nothing you can do except go, oh, this is going to hurt.
Rattle you.
And it rattled.
Now, did the athletic trainer come out, and did you have to follow, did they have to follow concussion protocol with you?
I had to follow concussion protocol. Yeah. Went to the hospital. I was Lulu. Oh, yeah. I had to take the next week of games off.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if you have a concussion, then you have to be.
Oh, it rung my bell to the point that it broke the strap off the side of my mask right there too.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that was the ugliest foul ball I think I've ever taken.
That's fun too to have that story. It's part of the fun.
Yeah.
Right.
War stories are the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah. For real.
I was at Eastern Michigan one time.
What was
doing a game up there. Them in Akron, when Chris Sabo was still coaching at Akron.
Yep.
And
1 year or 2 years.
And catcher went out. Pitcher came in with an inside fastball, and I caught it right there.
Right on the inside thigh.
Missed it by that much.
I have padding that is right here, and it hit right there.
Yeah.
And after I got feeling back in my leg, yeah, and that catcher, oh man, you don't get to talk to me no more.
Yeah.
I said, matter of fact, I've got two things for you. Mick Ultra better be sitting in the locker room after the game.
Right.
And I don't care where that first pitch is when it comes in, you probably ought to swing at it. Yeah. But and he knew I was joking about that. But we had that relationship where we could laugh about that part of it after figuring out everything was okay. But I'm going to tell you what. That hurts.
Sure it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I had a bruise from my crotch to my knee. And I hated everybody that night.
What's your favorite moment of running somebody? Your favorite ejection? Don't say Pat.
Chad Porter.
Ha! That's awesome. Chad's come up twice in this podcast.
Chad, well, we had a balk call that he didn't.
This was in college game?
This was in a college game. We had a balk call that he didn't agree with adamantly. And he came charging out of the dugout, and he wears that plastic baseball hat. And
the Hillary? Yeah.
And he banged it right off my head.
Oh.
And I'm like, that's
like accidentally or
no?
See, we're gonna have to get Chad on now to let him let him speak for himself. That's right.
He was coming out to argue it, and he got closer than what he realized he was getting. I got all the way out to the left fielder out there because I was right and I was walking. John, you okay? Just go away. This is not the time to talk to me. But yeah, that was probably the best. Brian Bowen's only been run one time in high school.
And you did it?
I did it at Meg's when Bissell was there.
I don't think I've never gotten run in a high school game.
Or at least not by me.
No,
I've never been
I have
thrown out of
not.
a baseball game.
In a high school game. I did have to leave a 15U travel ball game in Cincinnati because Abe Stern, our pitcher, got called for 4 or 5 balks, and this was a young guy behind the mound. It wasn't the guy behind the plate calling him, and he kept calling him, and the guy behind the plate, because there was a couple of them. I'm like, okay, I'll give you the first one. I didn't really see what he did, but then I started paying attention. Of course, I was like, that's not a balk. I can't remember exactly what it was, but
right.
I'm like, that's not a balk. Like, you don't understand the rule of what a balk is. And so I go to the home plate umpire, and I'm like, are you really going to just let him do this? And he's like, yeah, coach, I'm not going to go against him. I'm like, well, you're both going to be wrong then. Well, then and then he threw me out.
Huh.
He threw me out. Yeah, it was a semi. And then
did you go back and say
semi-final game of a weekend tournament? And so I went over to Starbucks and hung out the rest of the time. But what was funny is the team that we were playing against, one of the coaches from that team later, it wouldn't have been 15, it'd been 14U, because during Brock's 15, 16, 17, and 18U years, when he played for the Midwest Marlins, the coach for that Pickerington Predators team, Dave Walters, he came and recruited Brock and Brendan to play on that Marlins team, and he said, I'll never forget that game in Cincinnati when that umpire ran you, because you said, you better not call another balk on that kid, and you started arguing. I'm like, that was right, that was you guys, wasn't it? I said, that's the only time I can think of that I've gotten thrown out of a game.
Did you go back and say, I'm going to go find out what I said? I want to know what I said.
Wally Backman him? I want to know what I said.
Here's a good one for you. Tom Heiler, Division I coordinator, NCAA coordinator of umpires, over everybody. He gave a speech at at the last NCAA meeting he was at. He was helping coach his 8th grade girls basketball team, his daughter's basketball team. Foul over on the side, didn't get it. The guy over on the side who was a little new didn't get it and stuff, and he looked at one of the other umpires. He's like, that's a foul right there. Sorry, coach, not my job, not my responsibility. Worst phrase you can ever have as an umpire, because that tells you that you're not watching the game. Now, you shouldn't ball watch, but to tell a coach that's not my responsibility, that is a weak excuse for a poor.
That's always a weak excuse.
Yeah.
Not my responsibility.
Yeah. And especially for umpires.
Yeah.
That is not what any evaluator or anybody
because I guess the response there is, I don't care whose responsibility is. Isn't it all of our responsibility to get it right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless. Yeah, maybe that's not your call, but did you see it? If you saw it, shouldn't we get it right?
Well, the NCAA tells us, if there's a question, get the crew together.
Well, that's why we have replay now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of times, calls are getting overturned like crazy now because they're being proven, right?
Right.
And call it good or bad, but
umpires hate it. Some umpires love it. I want to get the call right.
Yeah.
I do.
For the integrity of everyone.
The bang plays, again, you get that much time to watch it.
Yeah.
So if you've got this much room between his foot and the bag, and you're watching the ball and listen, it
tie goes the runner.
And it's
show me that in the rule book.
I said that in jest.
I know.
We actually have an episode where we talk about those myths that people don't understand. Yeah.
That's why I've always,
there is no such thing as a tie.
There is no such
He's
thing.
whatever the umpire said.
Yeah.
Safer out.
He either got there before the ball did, or
the
he
ball
didn't.
beat him, or it didn't.
Oh, there you go.
That's the
it.
answer.
That's it. That's the answer, right?
So,
well, John, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Spend some time with us today.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, we look forward to seeing you back out there again.
Most definitely.
It's really good to see you up and at 'em. No more of those Facebook posts from a hospital bed.
Yeah, I didn't really even know you were sick. I messaged you there. Someone told me you're in the hospital. I didn't even know. So.
I spent about a month in the hospital with that thing. I wouldn't recommend.
Missed your favorite time of the year, the baseball season.
I had to give back every single one of my tournament games.
Yeah.
And I cried as I did.
Sure, no doubt.
The College World Series was on. I couldn't even watch it. I was like, I watched a little bit of it, and it just made me. Then I look outside the window and I'd see the sun, and I wasn't allowed to go out in it. And I'm like, you know what? Click. I'm just gonna not.
When you step out there this spring for the first time, you're gonna have a whole different appreciation.
I already have
what
that
you're doing.
appreciation, but you are exactly right. It is. I don't even know how to describe it. It is just.
That's the best way to describe it.
It is
that long
a
silence
smile.
right there. Yep.
You just. Yeah. It is. It's baseball.
Yeah.